Good afternoon and welcome to the University of Tasmania online series for alumni. This is Explore. Firstly, as a reflection of this institution's recognition of the deep history and culture of this island, the University of Tasmania wishes to acknowledge the traditional owners, the Palawa people, custodians of the land on which we meet, and we pay respect to elders, past, present, and emerging. My name is Rob Blanford, and I am the Associate Director of Alumni Relations here at the University of Tasmania. This series, Explore, provides an opportunity, especially for you, alumni of the University of Tasmania, for lifelong learning and inspiration. One of the greatest advantages of being a member of the alumni community is the ability to tap into a group of influential individuals with vast global impact. This series offers an exclusive opportunity to connect with your peers and find amongst them innovators, thought leaders, and perhaps even potential collaborators. You are an important part of the fabric of the university, and that is why we hope to provide opportunities tailored to your needs, such as this one this afternoon. So just a few housekeeping notes from me before we get going this afternoon with the in conversation. Your microphone, camera, and raise hand function have all been disabled, so our guests will not be interrupted today. But we do encourage you to ask questions of our speakers, and this can be done by typing them into the Q&A function, which you'll see on your screen. We may not get to all of your questions, however, a selection will be answered during the Q&A section later in this session. And finally, this session is being recorded for later access on our YouTube channel. I feel we have some digital enthusiasts online with us today. In an era where virtual connections shape our personal and professional lives, having a standout online profile is no longer optional, it's kind of essential. Today, we hope this webinar will equip you with the tools and strategies needed to thrive in the digital landscape. It gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our special guest today, who will guide us through the intricacies of building a compelling online profile in today's fast-paced digital world. Firstly, I'd like to introduce Marge Glazebrook. Marge is a seasoned talent acquisition manager at Bunnings, leading recruitment across Australia and New Zealand. With over 20 years in recruitment, Marge has a rich history of working with top organisations like Thales Engineering, MMG Mining, Newell Rubbermaid, FMCG, and Officeworks. And currently, she works with iconic Australian brand Bunnings. Marge holds a Bachelor of Arts in Law from the University of Tasmania, as well as a Graduate Certificate of Legal Practice. She's passionate about creating exceptional candidate experiences and supporting early career talent. Welcome, Marge. There's an added piece of information. Marge is also an alumni mentor with us at the University of Tasmania, and she'll be sharing her expertise and supporting the next generation of professionals. So thank you, Marge, and welcome today. Next, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Natalie Procopio, who is a dedicated social media coordinator at the University of Tasmania. Nat has a background in freelancing. She brings a wealth of experience in digital marketing and content creation. She excels in developing engaging social media strategies that enhance the university's online presence. Her passion for storytelling and community engagement drives her to create impactful campaigns. So welcome to you, Natalie, as well. Lovely to have you here today. Nat holds a bachelor's degree in marketing, and her expertise spans across various platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So without further ado, let's dive into the world of digital exploration. Welcome, Marge and Natalie. And I actually believe, Natalie, you're up first. So
lovely. Thank you. Nice to meet you all. Thank you all for coming and joining us today. I think the first thing when we're speaking about LinkedIn is what is the first impression and what people will see when they land on your page. So I will quickly just share my screen so we can go through all the features on a profile, and then we can go from there on the chat. So I hope you're all seeing my screen now. Yeah, lovely, perfect. So building a LinkedIn profile, starting from the beginning, you have an option to add a cover photo on your profile. We always advise our staff, and whenever I give like LinkedIn training, when I deliver LinkedIn training, I always tell people, try to use your own photos here. So yes, of course, you can rely on some paid images, very professional images, but it's really nice to have your photo there to show how you see the world. And this is also an opportunity to highlight something like a slogan or something like from the business you work at, or if you run your own business, that's the space also to leave like the main message from your business there. Also, if you live in Tasmania, it's very easy to have a nice photo because anywhere you look around the island, you can have always like good shots. The second thing to look for is your current photo. Make sure it looks current. So if you're still using your gown and your undergrad's photo from 1998, you probably need a refresh on that. It's really important for you to be recognizable. So if someone is going to meet you face to face after looking at your LinkedIn profile, or if you work in a big organization and people need to reach out to you, see like who they're going to meet with, it's important for people to actually know who you are, what you look like. So they're looking for the right people. The next point is the headline and position. So back in the day when LinkedIn was mostly for recruitment, people would just add their current position there, the current role. But now we have a little bit more space so you can summarize what you're doing in a sentence if you're capable of. In my case, I'm very proud to say that I'm always sharing great stories across the university. So that's really easy for me to put out there. Maybe your current job is a little bit more complex, but try. Then we have some accessibility features. So the first thing is the audio recording of your name. So if you are someone called Natalie Procopio, it might not be easy for everyone to say. So it's okay to record how to pronounce your name, or even if you have a nickname that you're okay with. If you click on mine, if you're gonna look up me on LinkedIn and you find me, you're gonna say I say my name, and then I'm like, I'm okay with Nat. So it's all good. You can call me Nat, not a problem with that. Also, you have a space to add your pronouns, and that's definitely a good thing to do because that opens up for other people to introduce themselves and share their pronouns as well. And then on the right side of the profile, you can add your current past education and also your current employer. So it's not compulsory. You can choose whether or not you want to associate your name and your experience with the brands that are important to you. In my case, I added RMIT Online because my bachelor's degree is from a Brazilian university, which is not really relevant or well known in Australia. So I wanted to make sure everyone would know that I work for the University of Tasmania, and I also studied in another university in Australia. So that's enough of screen sharing. Now we're going to see everyone's face. That's a much better way to do it. And yes, so that's pretty much it for a LinkedIn profile.
Excellent. Great introduction, Nat. And I loved what you said about the photo, because I think instinctively when we look at a really old, out-of-date photo, it's kind of cringe, right? And you can tell if someone's got something up there from 20 years ago. So thank you for mentioning that. That's really important, I think. Okay, so we're going to go into a few questions now. And for the audience, we have pre-prepared these. So Margin, Nat, no one's coming here. So first of all, Nat, this one's for you. What are the common pitfalls to avoid when developing a personal brand?
That's a good question. I think the first thing you have to watch out for is, do you want to be someone else online that you're actually not? So I think that's probably the first one. Don't try to look someone that you're not. Make sure you have your own personality and bring your identity to your digital channels. So I think that's the top one. Don't try to be all the time super smart or just be like on top of all terrains if that's not really you. And you can always bring personal characteristics to your content as well. So I'd say just stick to who you are.
So authenticity is absolutely key. Yeah, great. Which is the same with applying for jobs, right? So not misrepresenting yourself, I guess. So Awesome. Thank you for that one. Next one as well for you, Nat. So how important is consistency in personal branding, and how can it be maintained across various platforms?
I think we can think of a journey. So when someone is going to meet you or have any sort of contact with your brand at different touch points. So let's say this person found you on LinkedIn, and then your LinkedIn has your website, if you are, for example, a freelancer. Are they going to have the same contact on both platforms? They're going to see the same language, the same personality, the same colors, the same branding. And if they go out for a coffee meeting, are they going to have the same experience? So I think the main thing is thinking of the journey, and everything needs to be kind of consistent, all channels, pretty much.
Yeah, okay. And this is quite interesting. And I think Marge will comment on this as well in a bit. And I might add a few examples later, but yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Marge, so across to you. So as a recruiter, tell us, do you look at socials?
Yes, yes, definitely. It's quite interesting. I have, as you mentioned before, I have been in the recruitment game for quite some time, and I've seen social media sort of from something very basic, and LinkedIn, for example, is very, very basic to what it is now, which is absolutely huge. And it's such an important tool for recruiting, no matter what industry I've worked in. We do definitely look at people's socials. I lock down my Instagram and my Facebook. They're probably the only other socials other than LinkedIn that I'm on, because I suppose I see them as my fun, my personal, but my LinkedIn is my big professional network that I try and grow as much as possible. Through the process, for some roles we won't always look, but for some roles where we sort of feel it's really relevant to see what they've created on that profile. So for example, if it was a communications role or a design type role, or it's always interesting to go and have a look and just see sort of what they've put on there, sort of how they present themselves. So I think, yeah, we do look at social media just to see, sort of what's coming through there. And there's a lot of stuff that's available these days. So it's something to keep in mind, sort of what you've got visible, and maybe what you've got open and available for people to see.
Yeah, that's right. And it makes
Yeah.
sense, right? Because
Yeah,
you can look at their socials, but also your customers can look at their socials. So it's important.
totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think for us, even with my own LinkedIn, for example, I love Bunnings. I've been at Bunnings for a while, and my, I like to post different things that, are relevant for me. I suppose if I was looking for another job in the future, I want them to be able to see, as a recruiter, what's the stuff that I'm passionate about? What are the posts that I'm doing? How do I like to promote our business? I spend a lot of time in Bunnings with my dog, so I feel like she's like this self-appointed Bunnings ambassador. So that's the stuff that I like to share on my profile at the moment, because that's where I am. If I was working somewhere else in the future, for me, again, it would be important to sort of show what that looks like as well.
Yeah. And I love what you just said there, Marge, that showing our passions on LinkedIn is
Mm,
super important. And I
yeah,
know that, as having employed people myself, when you see that spark, that indescribable spark of passion on people's behalf about what they do, it's so exciting, because you know that they probably really do want the job. And it's not,
yeah.
not just for the money, but yeah, that passion is awesome. So,
It's
um,
it's where you can see a bit more than what's on paper or what's on their LinkedIn. So that sort of stuff, showing those passions, I think shows what's different about Nat or what's different about Rob, and can really connect you with a business through that recruitment process, and could be the difference in terms of maybe why they go for you, because they're like, oh my God, we saw this, or we saw this, and this is exciting. So
so it could
it's
get you
important.
across the line.
It
Yeah.
honestly could. Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's a really good segue into the next question then. So what would be your advice for candidates who are actually in the job market right now in this space then?
Yeah, I think I was actually just sitting with a friend the other day who got made redundant. So spending a bit of time with her around resumes and LinkedIn and sort of what to do. And if it can be quite scary. There's a lot out there. I think it's just really just taking it step by step. If it's your LinkedIn, for example, it's looking at some other LinkedIn profiles and seeing what other colleagues or, sort of what other people are putting on their LinkedIn. As Nat said before, you want to still be true to yourself. So you don't want to sort of necessarily be copying something everyone else has got just because that you think that looks good, but does that resonate well? Does that feel comfortable for you? But I think with LinkedIn, it's about sort of keeping it simple as well. It doesn't need to reflect your whole resume and have all the details of everything that you've got in your resume. I did say to someone the other day, I said, LinkedIn is almost like the teaser before the movie. It's like that little,
Right.
it feels like it gives you just that little, a little bit of more, here's a little bit about Nat, and this is why we want to meet her again. If I'm headhunting for a role, if I need someone in social media, and I'm doing some recruitment right now for a social media person, if I found Nat on LinkedIn, I'd be like, okay, what can I see there that makes me go, I want to find out more about her. I want to know more about what she's done here, and here. Oh my God, she worked at RMIT Online, or she worked at UTAS. So what is it that I want to find more about? So it's about the key just highlights that are going to
Yep.
make someone sort of think that's interesting. I want to know more.
Awesome. Next question then, again for you, Marge. How do you identify and articulate your unique value proposition as an individual?
Yeah, it's interesting. I talked about my dog before, so my dog, she may appear at some point. So just apologies to everybody who's dialed in. But my dogs are very important to me. So that's something that I feed through and that connects well with Bunnings, I suppose. We've got a big pet range. You can take your dogs into store. So that all sort of connects really well. So I am in my dream job. I think it's about sort of just really working out what are those really important things about for you. And it might be about you might be really passionate about resilience. You might be really passionate about mental health. You might be passionate about dogs. You might be passionate about wherever that place is that's in Rob's background that looks absolutely incredible and I want to put on my next bucket list in Tassie. There's lots of different things. And I think it's about just thinking of some of those key things and those are the things that you like. They're the stories that you like, or they're the images that you like, or you might do a post and it's about, there's some themes that you feed through when you're sort of sharing stories or posts or something on LinkedIn. So I think it's if you were to look at my LinkedIn, I like a lot of stuff about other retailers, dogs, and traveling. So there's some key things there, and I try to connect those things together when I'm doing things, if that sort of makes sense, hopefully.
Yeah, it does. It does. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think we've touched on this already a little bit, but there's a question about how personal branding helps with career advancement and further opportunities. But it's probably part of the same picture, is it? Do you think, whether we're trying to get our foot in the door for the first time or open another door 10 years after graduation, is it the same?
I think so. I would say yes. The other thing I was just thinking of as you said that is also I think it's great to have a really good profile there because if, say, you talked before about you hiring, Rob, when you're hiring, so if I set up some candidates to come and interview with you, for example, if I'm working at UTAS, they're gonna Google you, Rob. They're gonna look up your LinkedIn and they're gonna want to look at your background because if I was a candidate, I'd be like, okay, where's Rob worked? How long has Rob worked at UTAS for? What's his role? What's his career been like? So I think that's a really important thing as well in terms of how if you're hiring as a leader, sort of you will get candidates, looking at your profile to think, do I want to work with someone like Rob? Obviously.
Yeah, that's such a good tip, Marge. Yeah, that's awesome, isn't it? Because we never think of it that way around.
No.
But actually, if you're recruiting, you're going to get looked at as well.
Yeah, all the time.
And that's actually part of the. Now, this question, we haven't teed this question up, but I'm just going to ask, what's your thought on, like, should people go incognito when they're looking up their recruiter, or is that not a problem?
It's interesting, and I get friends asking me this, and I would have said yes in the past, go incognito. If you're stalking your ex-boyfriend, maybe yes. Okay, definitely go incognito. But if it's for a work-related thing, and I find this interesting because I do look at who looks at my profile, and recently I saw an old leader that I'd worked with years ago, and then I noticed that he was open for work, and we've actually got a general manager role that I was just like, oh my God, this is going to be perfect. So I reached out to him, and I'm like, are you looking for work? So I feel like, look, it's a personal preference, I suppose. If it's someone that you sort of think, oh God, I don't want Nat knowing that I've looked at her profile for whatever reason, then you can go incognito and change in the background in your settings.
Yeah.
But if you've just applied for a job at Bunnings, for example, and you're looking up me or you're looking up some other people, why not let that person know that you've been doing some research? Because it's actually, I always say to people, when you're going through an interview process, when you're applying for a job, do some research.
Yeah.
Look at some of those people and their backgrounds. That's all part of the process. It's
It's
important, I
due
think.
diligence, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
And probably for those in the audience who don't know what we meant when we talked about going incognito online, so you can actually open a private browsing window tab on your browser, which means that there's no cookies dropped, so people can't see who you are if you look at them on LinkedIn. We might put some instructions on that when we send out the email afterwards for anyone who didn't know that. So good. And then just one last question to you, Marge, before we go into general discussion. Ethical considerations around personal branding. Is there anything you think about that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I've just said, be careful if you're looking up an ex-partner or something like that. So maybe LinkedIn's not for that. I just think, look, it's really interesting because LinkedIn has gone from when I first joined LinkedIn, probably 20 years ago. It was very simple. It was about those networks and the job front. The last few years, particularly since COVID, a lot of people share a lot of personal stuff, which, some people have opinions about that. Some people are okay with it. Some people sort of think, oh, no, it's supposed to be just professional. But you do find people are sharing a lot about their lives. So whether it's I just got married or I'm with my dog at Bunnings or whatever it might be, or, I've traveled here or big life things that have happened. I think, it's great that people are sharing a lot more content and you do get to understand people a bit more. I just think perhaps, and people might have different views on this, Nat, I don't know what your views are, but I think it might be a little bit about just being careful about perhaps posting things that might be a little bit polarizing, depending on if you've just applied for a job at X company and you've sort of posted something that's completely sort of would be seen from that for their values, perhaps quite controversial. If they're looking at your LinkedIn, it might, I don't know. I think it's just you've just got to be conscious of who can see this stuff. Probably like with Instagram and Facebook and everything else.
I think also adding to that, I agree, completely agree. And adding to that, sometimes people forget that what they comment actually is visible for all their network. And very often people get into some heated conversations and that goes straight into the personal preferences and it has nothing to do with their professional life. And all the recruiters, everyone that is connected, everyone is seeing. So you have those beautiful polished posts, you have the best photo on your profile, but you're just spreading hate on comments. You definitely just like walking backwards. It doesn't matter how much effort you put into it. So it's very important the way you engage as well.
That's really good. Yeah, that's a really good comment, Nat. And I'm sure loads of people don't think about that. And it's really hard, isn't it? Because we love our employers, or we want to engage even with the employer we want to work for. So we're invested in them. So if you see people being negative, you're quite tempted to, clap back sometimes. But yeah, that could have quite negative consequences. So great. Thank you so much. All right. So next question for both of you then, about balancing authenticity with professionalism in personal brand. Is there a line? What do you think? Any comments on that one?
I think
I love these days. Don't you think, Nat? It's a bit blended. I feel like it's blended a bit more these days.
It is blended. And I think also the LinkedIn is your opportunity to show the behind the scenes. So let's say you were in this very formal event. You're just, I don't know, like presenting a gala, like it's something very formal, like you have to behave. But then how do you translate that to social media? I'm not talking TikTok, I'm talking LinkedIn. How do you translate that moment to a social media platform? It's still a professional, it's still corporate. But if you just show the behind the scenes, just like how the internet goes crazy when you have those selfies on Oscars, when they have those nights and they see like all those beautiful famous people on a selfie. And that's definitely something you can play with as well. So if you're in this very important event and there is a famous person there for that gala, take a selfie with that person and share your impressions for the night, not from a professional photo taken. Of course, you can do that as well. But if it's a selfie, if it's something that you actually did behind the scenes, people will engage more. So it's still like, it's about a professional event, it's about a professional development, a course or something you're doing. But instead of just the polished photo, you can have a different point of view that is your personal point of view, describing that situation. I think that works pretty well. That's pretty much what I do on my LinkedIn.
Yeah. We are really in a totally new era, aren't we? Because it would have been inconceivable, even, I'm going to say, even like 10 years ago, that a prime minister would do a selfie with a member of the public and post that on social media. That is totally normalized now, and actually encouraged in some ways. So yeah, it is very much a blended situation. So excellent. All right. Next question then. We've already touched on this a bit, I guess, with the comments discussion, but what about how, managing and responding to negative feedback or criticism online? How do you, what are your comments or thoughts about that? Ignore it, leave it alone, delete it. What do you think?
The first thing is, it doesn't need to be straight away. There's no pressure on you ever to reply to something straight away, especially if you have emotions, like if you can feel your body responding to some sort of distress. Maybe it's better to take a deep breath, go for a walk, drink some water, maybe have some quiet time, or talk to someone about something else, because then when you go back to that comment, it will put things into perspective. So before making a decision, a rushed decision, should I delete, should I respond, should I ignore, should I spread, like screenshot and put on don't do anything until you're 100% sure of what that's gonna look like in a week, in a month, in a year time. Social media is very open and is a two-way conversation. So if you have a public profile, you're always there. Like, people can always come and comment and do whatever they want. But how you respond is actually how you're representing yourself, your brand. And it's better to do that with a cool mind instead of just going straight away. I think that's my biggest piece of advice, but I'm sure Marge has something else to add.
I 100% agree. I think I've matured over time with how to respond. I think, I definitely agree. I think there was definitely a period when I was a bit younger where you heated the moment, you'd be like, oh my God, why would someone write that? And you start, but I am a big fan of starting to type something and then deleting it. I feel then I've gone, I've mentally sort of gone, why would you do that? And then I delete it so it doesn't go out there. But I think, like you said, taking that time and really thinking about it. Look, I've definitely had, because of my role as a recruiter for any company, sometimes you'll post things about wherever you're working and about a career, and there will be someone that, for whatever reason, at some point perhaps didn't get a job at that company, and they will come back potentially because it's been an unfortunate situation, and they can be quite negative. For me, the way I tend to do that is send them a message and say, let's chat directly. Like, I'd love, for me, it's sort of taking that offline. If someone has, and I have had, someone post something pretty hateful, and I was just like, you know what? I didn't want that on my LinkedIn at all. So I just deleted it, because I was like, that's my choice to sort of go, I just didn't want that sort of a comment, and I didn't want to entertain or sort of go into any sort of further communication with them because it was pretty hateful. So I think, but I definitely think that what you've said about sort of taking that time, and sometimes people just need that forum maybe to do some sort of venting. When I have reached out to people directly, God, it's amazing when you actually do speak to them, or it's a one-on-one communication, how differently they can be. And there's obviously, you don't know what's happening in someone's life. It's very easy though for people to sort of type something. So I think it's up to your discretion what you want to do. I think if you're not sure, talk to someone and just ask them and say, look, what would you do here?
Do a sense check. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I can get quite emotional about things and take things personally, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think I've got some friends that probably are not as emotional as I am, and will go, hey, Marge, just maybe think about this or this or this. So yeah, I think that can help.
Yeah, good advice. And I think we've all done things certainly of someone of my age, we've all done things where we regret it afterwards. And actually, when you get angry and you get that visceral reaction, and then you feel shame when you do something, when you do respond in a negative way, you feel shame afterwards. And I would contend that that is actually more damaging to you than as an individual than it was to the other person. So revenge online is not always the best option. So anyway, right. So I'm going to pick a few questions here to keep us moving. Do either of you have examples of successful personal brands that you've seen online? And would you make any comments on what we can learn from them?
For me, look, just generally speaking, I love following people that post photos. Like, I like to see photos as opposed to just big blocks of text. That's just, if I'm scrolling through, whether it's someone I'm connected with or someone else that sort of I can see through someone other connection, if I just see lots of text, it doesn't interest me. I'm quite a visual person. And I do like sort of what Nat spoke about before in terms of like selfies, as opposed to probably really structured formal photos of and those sorts of things. I'm a big fan of Richard Branson. I always have been a big fan of Richard Branson. I find his life very interesting. Anyone that's got a private island, obviously, very interesting. But I love that he posts a lot of, I just think, positive content and photos of people that work for Virgin at all different levels. And it's just simple, very simple, and just I just think really interesting content. The other person that I really more recently, and look, he's on other social media as well, but Simon Sinek, I find him really interesting, and just really, he does like really quick, short sort of videos of things that he'll post, and I find it's quite impactful. It's just really short stuff that might be a minute, and you sit there and it really makes you think. So, and I always find people that I find interesting, I then look at who they follow and who they repost, perhaps. Sometimes then I get sick of someone because I'm like, oh God, it's true. And then you say, I'll just unfollow them or silence them for a little bit, because I'm like, it's not as interesting these days. But yeah, I think for me, it's about the photos. It's about some of the interesting, just really quick sort of content when you're on the train going to work or the bus or something like that. That's
cool.
Nat,
I think the good news is the LinkedIn already did the homework for all of us. So if you go on Google and type LinkedIn top voices, that's a really good source of people they're killing and they're doing a great job. And then you can filter by country, or you can have a look at the global overview. Of course, we have a lot of United States representation on the global one, just because they've been on LinkedIn for a long time and they're very out there for content creation. But in Australia, I think my favorite person is Auntie Munia Andrews, and she is a leader. She's an Indigenous leader, and she makes knowledge biteable for international people, in my case. So when I want to learn more about our Indigenous heritage in Australia, what is the do's and don'ts, what is new out there, what they're fighting for, something like this. She makes everything very easy to learn. And there's another person that I love following. I'm almost sure he's American. His name is Pascal Bornet, and he posts about AI, technology, and everything that is coming up in the world for technology. So those crazy things about, those transparent screens, and what they're testing in robotics. And I think this is all fascinating, how we're using technology to improve our lives and what it's coming up soon. So I think it's a matter of finding those voices, those people, and seeing what you want to get out of your LinkedIn scrolling, because as you start following interesting people, you're going to end up spending maybe more time on LinkedIn than you do on Instagram, for example. So it's really nice when your feed is very interesting and you're connected with people from, let's say, even like Bunnies and Utahs. They're both huge companies. So we have a lot of colleagues that we can follow and connect with on our channel. So it's really nice to see their updates, what they're working on, what are the projects, as well as interesting people in various space.
So even though it's the digital realm, it's about networking even there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the more,
Find
but the
the
more
right
people you're
person.
connected with as well, like, so me being connected with you, Rob, and Nat, like the more people you're connected with, so I'll see a story that you like, or that someone else, and I might not follow that person, but I'll then see that Rob's liked this, or Nat's liked this, and or you've commented. So, and then you start seeing new content, or new people that you weren't across. So it's the bigger that network is, the more content that you'll sort of have flying in, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So it's actually, people need to not just think of it as like another Facebook. It does have real benefits to our careers and to our lives in some ways if we use it well. So
I always say to my husband when I'm scrolling, he's like, "What are you scrolling on?" And I'm like, "It's not Instagram. I'm not looking at videos. It's LinkedIn. It's professional." I
yeah,
mean, look, obviously sometimes there's some non-professional stuff on LinkedIn, and I might sort of get stuck in some rabbit hole of videos, but that's my excuse for why I'm scrolling, and I'll stick to that.
love it. Love it. Yep. I'm going to change direction with a question here, and I think we need to go over to the audience Q&A after this, but can you comment on personal branding and how it may differ across industries? And are there any industry specific strategies that you can think of?
I think for me, because I have worked in lots of different industries, same sort of work, hiring for different companies, but my tact, my approach might change a bit depending on. So if my next role, I mean, I'll be at Bunnings forever, but if I was to leave Bunnings, say if I went to a legal firm, for example, a bit more conservative potentially, sort of a different type of colleague that I'd be networking with, I might sort of really rethink about the types of groups I'm following on LinkedIn. At the moment, I follow a lot of retailers around Australia, but also around the world, so I can see what they're doing. So if I was to then go to another industry, I would probably not follow as many retailers, because where I would be looking for candidates and the networks I would be involved in would be quite different. I'd still want to be me. I feel like, I don't know, and I was thinking about this because I know we sort of were talking about these questions the other day, Rob, but I feel like at the end of the day, whether it's in an interview process or on LinkedIn, I'm still me. I'm still Marge when I'm going through that process. When I'm reaching out to candidates that we want to headhunt wherever I'm working, I still need to be me. I don't want to be someone else.
Yeah.
I think that's the important thing, and that goes back to what Nat was saying before about authenticity. So that's really important. So you probably wouldn't see me working at a legal firm, to be honest, because I'm just not sure if I'm a good
It's
match
not
for
you
that.
nowadays kind of thing.
No,
Yeah.
but I think the Bunnings, the retail, that sort of is really my perfect match in terms of where I'm working and what I'm passionate about. But I think, I don't know. I still think ultimately you still got to be you, but then, it's just about maybe what sort of content you might be looking at. You know, the networking groups I think are really important. Those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to think of it as like putting a filter on a light, like you do in a theater to change its color. It's still us. It's just a different color of
Yes.
us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Any comments from you, Nat, as well?
Yeah, I think there's some industries that it has sensitivities. So it's really hard, for example, for a doctor or a nurse to show like a day in a life or what they are doing, because of course they're dealing with vulnerable people. They're dealing with a difficult time for a lot of people. So how can you share something that is meaningful, but is actually respecting boundaries? So I definitely it's tricky in some industries than in others, but I guess it's always like, as Marge was saying, find more people in that industry and see the work they are doing, get inspired by what else is out there, and then you're gonna find your voice and find your feet the way you can do, like what is within your reach.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's an interesting comment, because I've seen some young medics like posing in their scrubs, and that's fine, but it's not meaningful. So you make a very good point there. So good. All right. So for the audience now today, if you'd like to start thinking about any questions that you have for Marge and Nat, I'm just going to flick over to a couple of questions that we received in advance from alumni member Jun Wei. So he put two questions through for us. So Firstly, Nat, this may be you first up, I think. So what is the mechanism for pushing or boosting content in Instagram and Facebook? Is it similar to TikTok? And he gives this example. So in TikTok, if you post a video, it will be pushed out to about 100 accounts first. And based on the performance of the video, the system will then put the video into a larger pool. So is that the same elsewhere?
I think the beauty of LinkedIn is that you don't have to crack the algorithm, to be honest. I feel LinkedIn is a lot more democratic, and it's
Right.
a lot more about how good is actually your content engaging for your real network than actually relying on algorithms. So I don't see any patterns. I don't see anything like what we see on other channels like TikTok, Instagram. I see that LinkedIn is whenever, of course, when your posts go out there, you're going to have a better reach, a better result, just because it's a new post. And a lot of people will like that for the first time. But that's the thing, when they like, their connections will also start seeing. So it kind of spreads out, and then you have this beautiful network liking, commenting, or even seeing your content. So it's a lot more about creating what is right for you. Again, what is authentic, what is relevant, what clearly is what you want to talk about, something interesting, than actually trying to crack the algorithm. So just make sure it's not about volume like many of other channels, but it's more about quality. And the lifespan of posts as well. The LinkedIn has the best lifespan. It's been a while since I last researched that, but we were looking at 3 to 4 days, I think, a few years ago, whereas a tweet, for example, from X was 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And an Instagram post was just a couple of days or just like 24 hours. So that's when I say it's democratic, is because your posts are out there for longer, which means you don't have to post twice a day, every day, or no, you can post whenever you have something relevant to post, and you're not going to lose engagement because of that. I would say like the safe space would be like once a week. Once a week is fair, not too much work for you. And you probably will have something interesting to talk about from the past week. So you have some time to put some thought in and make something that is good.
And that brings us right into the second part of the question from Junwei, actually. So he said, can presenters share tips for running a social media account? How do you decide on the topic of the video each time?
Oh, how do you decide? For LinkedIn, I think it's about you. So what is happening in your life that you want to talk about? And if you wanna plan ahead, maybe have some, we call them pillars. Have some pillars and have topics under those pillars, and then you make sure you're reaching out to them consistently.
Consistently, yeah.
Thank you. So you know exactly what you want to talk about. You just make sure you're covering all the aspects you decided beforehand. So just kind of follow a plan. There are some people that prefer to plan like a month ahead and have those posts ready to go. And there are people that prefer, like they just finished, like, I don't know, they just coming back from a seminar or something. They want to post it straight away on the go. That's fine too. Whatever works best for you. It's better to have something than actually trying to be perfectionist and not having enough or not having any sort of consistency there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. I've never heard it articulated that way before, that when you're running an account, you could have pillars, which is a really good, really so thematic posting. And I suppose that gives the audience a little, you know, they know what they're going to expect to some extent, and then you can keep on curating around those. So
mostly to make your life easier when you're planning. So you don't have to work with what is available in the world. But if you limit yourself to 5 pillars, then you're always looking for something like in that range. So that's less work for you. It's easier.
Yeah. To our audience members today, if you've got any questions, please drop them in the Q&A module. I'm going to ask you both another question here. As people who, you know, you work with social media quite a lot, and you know it's probably quite a big part of your life in a way. How do you moderate the time that you spend on it, you know, and make sure it doesn't get out of hand?
Who does that?
I was about to say, I feel like that's a, I don't know. For me, For LinkedIn, I don't look at LinkedIn on my holidays. That's a clear, because for me, LinkedIn is my tool Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
That's the way, because and I am on LinkedIn 5 days a week. It's always on in the background. We post jobs on LinkedIn. I'm always looking at what's happening. I look at other retailers, what they're doing, who we're competing against. I might be sending messages to candidates that we've reached out to. So LinkedIn is it's like Microsoft Teams for me. It's like Outlook. It's a daily thing. Don't even ask me about other social media. I have put time 15 minutes a day as like a time, like maximum time. But then when it comes up saying that I've been on Instagram and I've hit my 15 minutes, I go ignore, and then I keep looking. So, but I do try. To be honest, Monday to Friday, I'm not looking at Instagram and Facebook much during
Too
work
busy.
hours because I'm too busy on other things. But I just don't know if I've perfected that for personal stuff outside of work hours. But if anyone has the secret, please let me know. Maybe
Yes.
I don't think I ever want to get rid of it. And I'm probably the only person that's on Facebook still anymore. So that definitely is probably showing how old I am. And I don't have a TikTok account. So if I did have a TikTok account, I think I'd be on socials 24/7.
Yeah,
So
dangerous, right? What do you reckon, Nat? Any?
I think you have to be aware, and when you're going a little bit over your limit, the limit that you put it to yourself, you can ask yourself a question: what am I trying to escape from? Because sometimes it's just like that massive task, that massive project that you have to start, but it's so big and scary that you just decide to postpone. So it's a little bit of procrastination. I think a lot of us, like, you're just about to hit that very boring, tedious task of the day. Then you're like, okay, let me scroll for 5 minutes, and five become 10 and become half an hour. And then you're like, I'll leave it for tomorrow. And then you start getting in trouble. So I don't think it's something we can solve today, but definitely something to talk to your therapist about and
Yeah.
try to
Yeah.
find other ways to escape. It's okay. We all need to escape. We're humans. But maybe instead of just scrolling, go for a walk, go for a stretch, just have a power nap, or find something else that is not really screen related, especially if your job, your work is to be on computer all day. You don't want to be changing from screen to screen. Try to do
Yeah.
something offline. And
Yeah.
also, again, if you live in Tasmania, just go for camping over the weekend, because you're not going to have any reception. So problem solved for you is like a full weekend detox. It's amazing.
Yeah, very good point, actually. Yeah. What's worked for me personally is, so I know that you can set up different profiles on your phone for different times of day. So my office profile won't give any notifications for Facebook, WhatsApp, or Facebook Messenger, which has been really useful. It still pings for LinkedIn because I need to use that for work. And then, vice versa. Yeah, I have chosen to switch off LinkedIn notifications after hours because, like Marge, that has connotations of work for me, and I actually don't want to see LinkedIn messaging after hours. So yeah.
The other thing I was just going to say, which is slightly connected to what we're talking about, but just another point I thought would be really interesting for anyone watching. If you are looking for another job, whether you're out of work, in work, don't do it all the time. Like, I would always recommend, like when I was talking to my friend the other day who's just been made redundant, she was just like, I've just spent the last 2 days just online, trawling through Seek, trawling through LinkedIn. I feel like you could get stuck there down a rabbit hole and not feel like you're getting anywhere. I definitely recommend just a short burst sort of, but don't let it take up your whole day. As much as it's obviously important, I feel like you need to make sure you've got that time away and you are getting fresh air and doing all that sort of stuff, which puts you in a better mental health space when you do get a call from Marge at Bunnings saying, hey, we've got a role that you've applied for. Can we have a chat? I just think that balance particularly will make a difference at those times as well. Otherwise, you might not come across your best self if you're sort of not in the best frame of mind, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
which is in itself part of our personal branding as well, isn't it? So yeah, if you're frazzled because you've been up on your phone until 3 o'clock in the morning, then that's probably not great. So yeah. All right. I think we might be coming towards the end of the session there, unless either of you two have got any final, I guess, golden tips for our audience today.
I would always recommend your photo you don't have a pair of sunnies on, unless you're applying for a job at Sunglass Hut or something like that. And perhaps just in your photo, just you don't need to have everybody that you went to someone's wedding with, or a Bucks Day or a Hens Day or something like that, I always think then I'm standing there looking at it thinking, which one's Rob? Because there's like 6 people on there.
Yes, good point.
Don't treat it like your Tinder profile or anything like that. Just a nice photo of you. It doesn't have to be a corporate headshot. I don't use a corporate headshot. I've got a photo of me working in a Bunnings store with an apron on. That's what I feel is authentic to me. It doesn't have to be some fancy corporate headshot. I think it's just about showing you naturally.
Yep.
Yeah, that's probably my only other tip.
Yeah, I like it. What about you, Nat?
I think if you get caught up in creating content, you're running out of time, you have too much on your plate, and you're like, oh, my week was terrible, I have nothing to post today. You can still engage, because that still show on your timeline, like in your feed, a personal feed, and you still like sending the message out there that you are active. So being active doesn't mean posting all the time if you don't have anything nice to post, but engaging, commenting, and just pushing colleagues, people that you know, or brands that you love, that does the job as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Great tips from you both. And it's been really good to have you both here today. So I'm just going to do some wrap-up messaging for everyone. All right. Sorry, I'm just scrolling on my screen. All right. I'd like to ask the audience to, albeit silently, thank today's guests, Marge Glazebrook and Natalie Procopio, for joining me today for what was a really engaging session. I really enjoyed talking to you both, so thank you so much. We've seen a great example this afternoon of the expertise that we have here within our alumni and university community. Please keep a lookout for invitations in your inboxes with other opportunities to engage with your university. I look forward then to some upcoming events that we have at the university, either online or at the Stanley Burbury Lecture Theatre. And finally, the recording of this afternoon's presentation will be available soon via our YouTube channel, which you can access through the Explore website. So I'm just draw attention to your events, the events coming up. We have the Unaccompanied Children Homeless Alone event, which is on Wednesday, the 18th of September. So that's either in Southern Tasmania or online. Then on Friday, the 20th of September, we have the Hope and Leadership with Rosie Batty event, where Rosie will talk about her journey from tragedy to advocacy, offering lessons on resilience, community action, and finding hope. As always, our alumni team are here to address any questions you might have, and you can reach us via the contact details that you can see on your screen. We would love to know if there are any topics that you would like us to help explore, or perhaps you are a member of the alumni community who would like to offer your expertise. If so, please reach out to the team via the contact details on your screens. That brings us to the end of today's presentation. Thank you once again for taking part in this event. Marge and Nat, wonderful to have you join me, and I will speak to you soon. Thank you.